Hi guys. Tonight we drift into the deep, into waters where silence holds its breath and whole ships vanish without a trace. In this video, we'll explore one of the strangest corners of our planet, a part of the ocean where even sound seems to disappear and no one truly knows why. These are the places sailors feared to name, where the horizon hides whispers of ships that set sail and never returned. Before we go further, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell me, from which place and at what time are you watching tonight? Now, turn off the lights, let the room fall silent, and allow the soft background hum to pull you beneath the waves. Welcome to Deep Blue Secrets. The horizon glows faintly, painted in the last whispers of dusk. The ocean lies still, blue still. Each wave moves like a quiet breath, each ripple reflecting a sky caught between fading day and awakening night. You can almost feel the sea listening, patient, watchful, timeless. The water stretches endlessly, black as liquid glass. Beneath it, unseen life hums in secret rhythms, sounds that vanish before reaching the surface. Out here, cries don't echo. They dissolve. Old sailors said this was a cursed silence, one that devoured voices, engines, even hope itself. No storms, no wreckage, just absence, as if the sea itself decided what should be remembered and what should be forgotten. The air feels thick, heavy with salt and memory. Shadows blur at the edge of vision, where water meets the unseen. Every sense sharpens, waiting for something, not a sound, a sign, a breath. But only the hum remains, deep, endless, eternal. And somewhere far below, something ancient stirs, fast, patient, listening. A reminder that the ocean doesn't need fury to take. Sometimes silence is enough. The ocean never forgets. Every tide that rises, every current that drifts across its endless body carries traces of stories long gone. Fragments of ships, echoes of voices, the hum of forgotten radios still murmuring beneath the waves. Tonight, as we continue deeper, we drift into the ocean's memory, a realm where time doesn't fade, it lingers. The sea collects everything. Rusted bolts, shattered glass, messages swallowed by static, all fall into its patient embrace. It remembers the trembling hulls that once crossed its surface, the final distress calls, swallowed before they reach the air. In this silence you can almost hear them, the whispers of metal and memory entangled below. The ocean keeps them close, not out of cruelty, but possession, a keeper of what humanity has lost. Sometimes, divers return with strange finds, a compass pointing nowhere, a watch still ticking though its owner is long gone. They surface shaken, speaking of the way the deep seemed to watch them, as if it knew what it held and what it was willing to give back. The sea reveals fragments only when it chooses, a broken piece here, a ghostly hull there, enough to remind us it remembers everything, yet forgives nothing. At night, when the moon rests on its surface, the water seems alive with reflection, not of stars, but of memories rising to breathe. Each glimmer might be the echo of something once living, once seen, now drifting just beyond reach. And as we float above that dark mirror, it's impossible not to wonder, does the ocean choose what to forget, or what to remember forever? Some disappearances leave behind no struggle, no storm, no wreckage, no trace of violence, just absence, quiet and complete. Tonight, we drift into those calm waters where ships vanished beneath perfect skies. No wind tore their sails. No waves rose in anger. The sea was gentle, the air still. Yet by dusk, they were gone. Logbooks discovered later tell stories, frozen mid-thought, sentences cut off as if time itself stopped writing. Meals left half-eaten, coffee cups still warm, instruments untouched. It was as if the crew had simply stepped out for a moment and never returned. The decks remained tidy, ropes coiled neatly, and every sign pointed to peace, except for the silence that followed. Investigators would later circle the coordinates endlessly, searching for debris or oil slicks, but the sea offered nothing. No distress signals, no emergency calls, only the echo of engines that once hummed gently before falling still. Some said it was magnetic interference, others blamed sudden fogs or invisible whirlpools, but none could explain how entire vessels could dissolve into calm water without leaving a trace. On survivors from nearby ships spoke of strange sensations, the feeling of being watched, of hearing faint knocks beneath the hull. Some claimed the air itself felt heavier, as if something vast and unseen had passed by, brushing against reality before retreating into the deep. These vanishings were not acts of fury, but of intention. The ocean didn't rage, it simply took, quietly, cleanly, like a breath drawn and never released. And that is what makes these disappearances so haunting. Because if not the storm, then what took them? For centuries, sailors looked to the stars for guidance. Fragile lights in the vast dark, trusted more than any compass. The stars never lied, they believed. Each constellation was a promise, a map etched across eternity. Yet even then, ships strayed and vanished, swallowed by fog or fate. And as the tools of navigation grew sharper, the disappearances did not stop. They only grew quieter, more precise, as if the ocean itself was learning to hide inside our certainty. Today, the world hums with satellites and signals. Every ship carries the watchful eyes of machines, tracing its course across invisible grids. The GPS marks positions with flawless confidence. The radar scans horizons beyond sight. The illusion of control feels complete. But every year, a few vessels still slip away, into blind zones, into static, into silence. Coordinates stop updating, communication fades, and another dot vanishes from the map. Sometimes it's explained as error, a malfunction, a system glitch. But those who have been at sea long enough whisper something different. They say the ocean knows where our blind spots lie and waits patiently within them. It knows when faith turns into arrogance, when we believe we've mastered it. And that's when it reminds us who truly commands the horizon. There's a kind of poetry in this loss, a reminder that the more we measure the sea, the less we understand it. For all our technology, we still navigate through mystery. Every beacon we send out fades eventually into static. Every signal hums for a while, then dissolves into the same timeless quiet sailors once feared beneath the stars. Perhaps the sea never wanted to be mapped. Perhaps it allows us to believe we're in control until it decides to take one ship back, just to remind us that we never were. It began, as these stories often do, with a single transmission, a ship's voice echoing across the waves, calm and steady. Coordinates read clearly, confirmed twice, then silence. The signal was perfect, the numbers exact. Rescue teams traced the location within minutes, guided by technology built to eliminate doubt. But when they arrived, there was nothing. No ship, no debris, no trace of anything human. Only the soft rolling of waves beneath an indifferent sky. The coordinates were correct, yet they were wrong. The search expanded, sweeping miles in every direction, each sonar pulse returning the same reply: emptiness. The rescue crews hovered over the spot for hours, their engines humming against the wind, unsure whether to believe the machines or their eyes. In the vastness of the ocean, even precision dissolves. A single digit, a faint drift, the curve of a current, and the truth becomes unreachable. Later, investigators replayed the recordings, the voice of the captain calm until the end, the signal's strength unwavering. But there was something else, too. A faint hum beneath the transmission, rhythmic and unnatural, like something vast moving through the water. Some dismissed it as static, others as interference. Yet those who heard it closely said it didn't sound like a machine at all. In the years that followed, that patch of sea earned a quiet reputation. Newer ships avoid it when they can. Fishermen pass it in silence, watching their instruments flicker for no reason. And still the coordinates remain, fixed, documented, perfect, pointing to a place where nothing should be, and yet something was. It's a reminder whispered through every transmission that follows. Even the most precise numbers mean nothing when the ocean decides to shift its shape. They call it the magnetic mirage, a place where compasses spin. Signals fade and machines begin to whisper lies. On the surface, the sea looks ordinary, calm as glass. But beneath, something stirs, magnetic fields twisting like unseen storms, bending light, sound, and metal alike. Sailors once believed these zones were cursed. Scientists now call them anomalies. But both agree on one thing: they change everything that enters. Deep under the surface, iron-rich mountains shift slowly, breathing magnetic pulses into the water. These invisible forces wrap around steel hulls, confuse instruments, and scramble signals meant to guide them home. A ship might think it's on course, when in truth, it's turning endlessly in circles, chasing a horizon that isn't there. Radios hiss with phantom voices. Sonar returns shapes that vanish when approached. The sea begins to lie, and the crew starts to believe it. Rogue waves rise without warning, born from these same distortions, walls of water that seem to appear from nowhere, swallowing vessels before a single alarm can sound. Sometimes it's not waves, but silence that takes them. A brief flicker, a static hum, and then nothing. No distress call, no trace, only a mirage made of magnetism and myth. Scientists map these zones cautiously, tracing the invisible scars that run across the ocean floor. Yet even they admit no instrument can truly see what lies behind the interference. Some patterns repeat, some vanish overnight, as if the sea is rewriting its own laws. And so the line between science and superstition blurs. The ocean's unseen machinery hums on, tireless and ancient, reminding us that for all we measure and name, there are still places where the world refuses to make sense. The story of the Mary Celeste begins on a calm December morning in 1872 when a British brig named De Gradia spotted her adrift off the coast of Portugal. The ship looked alive from afar, sails trimmed, hull steady, moving as though guided by unseen hands. But as the crew boarded her, a silence unlike any storm settled over them. The tables were set for breakfast. The captain's log ended mid-sentence, the cargo untouched. Every sign of order remained, except for the people. No struggle, no blood, no lifeboats missing. Just an emptiness that hummed like a question too large for language. The Mary Celeste became a legend, a ghost ship adrift in history's imagination. But she was not alone. Over the decades that followed, others joined her silent fleet. Ships like the Talus in 2007 found sailing off the Australian coast with all systems running, coffee cups still warm, and no sign of her crew. Or the MV Joyita, discovered in the South Pacific, floating half-submerged yet impossibly buoyant, her radios tuned to distress frequencies, as if she'd been calling for help long after her people were gone. Across oceans and centuries, the pattern repeats, vessels left intact, logbooks ending abruptly, no sign of violence, no reason for departure. It's as if something moves through the sea, selective and unseen, taking only the living and leaving the rest untouched. Historians search for logic, mutiny, piracy, sudden panic. Scientists propose natural gases, rogue waves, optical illusions, yet none explain the perfection of the silence, the tidiness of the loss. The ocean does not rage in these stories, it observes, and so the Mary Celeste drifts still, not through the waves, but through every mystery that followed, a quiet reminder that some patterns should not exist, and yet they do. Among the wrecks the ocean keeps, there are fragments that still whisper, letters never finished, logbooks never closed, messages half-written and left behind. Each one a heartbeat caught between presence and absence, proof that someone tried to speak before the silence arrived. They are the human echoes of mysteries the sea refuses to explain. One such letter was found aboard a fishing trawler drifting off Japan's coast, the ink blurred by salt, yet one line still clear. Tell them I saw the lights again. No one ever learned whose lights he meant, or what became of the crew who vanished soon after. On another ghost ship off Iceland, a notebook lay open beside a cold lantern. The final entry read, "Winds calm, sea still, something knocking below." The handwriting trailed off mid-stroke, as if interrupted by the very thing he described. Even modern vessels are not spared. A distress transmission once reached the Coast Guard, a voice trembling, the words, "We can't see it, but it's here." Before static drowned everything, the coordinates traced to an empty patch of sea. The ship was never found. These fragments feel more haunting than any wreckage. They are not about metal or wood, but memory, the fragile, trembling link between human life and the vastness that swallows it. Reading them feels like listening through time, hearing voices reach out from the deep with messages that were never meant to be lost. Perhaps that's what the ocean truly keeps. Not the ships, but the moments between breath and silence, between fear and surrender. Every half-written letter is a reminder that before the sea took them, someone tried to leave proof they existed. A sentence reaching for shore. Forever unfinished, they were found days later, not sunk, not wrecked, just drifting, as if the ocean had borrowed them for a moment and then returned them, emptied. Everything was where it should be. Ropes neatly coiled, dishes still on tables, journals closed, engines silent but intact. Yet the people who once filled these spaces were gone, leaving behind a stillness heavier than any storm. When rescue crews boarded, they described a feeling that words could not hold, a sense that they were intruding on something sacred, unfinished. In one case, the captain's chair still held his coat. In another, coffee cups sat half full, the liquid long gone cold. Radios worked, compasses pointed north, but time somehow had stopped. Investigations always began the same way. Interviews, data, speculation, and all was ended with the same phrase: no signs of struggle, no broken locks, no distress calls, no footprints leading overboard. The official reports called it unexplained disappearance, as if that label could contain the grief of families who waited for answers that never came. It's the blank space that haunts most, the hours between the last message and the moment rescue arrived. Somewhere in that gap something happened that left no trace except absence itself. Some sailors whisper that the sea does not kill. It chooses. That sometimes it takes a crew, not out of malice, but as part of its endless exchange between presence and nothingness. And when it gives the ship back, it's not as a vessel anymore, but as a question. Standing on the deck of a found ghost ship, surrounded by quiet, one can almost feel it, that the ocean is still listening, still holding what it took, waiting for the world to stop asking why. There are places on our planet where maps fall silent, stretches of sea so strange that even satellites blur their edges. Sailors once marked these as "here be monsters," but in the modern age, they are labeled more cautiously: restricted zones, deep trenches, naval coordinates withheld for security reasons. Yet behind the language of bureaucracy lies something older, the unspoken rule that not all waters are meant to be crossed. These are the ocean's forbidden corridors, regions where compasses spin, signals die, and instruments report depths that shift with every reading. The Challenger Deep, the Puerto Rico Trench, the Kermadec, each one hums with gravity so warped it bends both metal and mind. Beneath them lie geological scars older than continents, where the earth folds inward on itself like a wound refusing to heal. Even the most advanced ships tread carefully here. Submarines vanish from sonar without warning. Radar returns are swallowed whole. Some attribute this to the ocean's sheer pressure, its metallic salts, or the magnetic fields that twist through tectonic lines. But others, especially those who have served long at sea, speak of sounds. Low rhythmic pulses beneath the hull, too deep to be whales, too steady to be natural. Governments claim these zones are used for testing, weapons, communication, seismic research, and maybe that's true. But what if the testing isn't ours? What if something beneath these corridors has been listening longer than we've existed, adjusting to our signals, waiting until we drift too close? There's a kind of reverence in every forbidden zone, a feeling that we're being tolerated, not welcomed, that the ocean allows us to sail only where it chooses. And maybe that's why no map, no matter how precise, dares draw certain lines, because even the cartographer must feel it. Some boundaries were never meant to be named. Some disappearances happen in places where silence is policy. Entire stretches of ocean, marked only by cryptic coordinates and coded warnings, are owned not by nature, but by nations. These are the regions where civilian signals fade, not because of weather or malfunction, but because something or someone makes them fade. In these waters, ships have vanished within sight of military patrols. Aircraft have gone dark over testing zones, and distress calls have been intercepted but never answered. The official reports read like puzzles, routine exercises, no evidence of hostile action, incident classified. Yet behind every tidy phrase lies the same question whispered among sailors. What did they see? Veterans who once served on restricted routes speak of sudden static, radio chatter sliced in half, and of radar screens that showed moving objects with no visible source. Some describe phantom pings, as if another vessel were shadowing them from beneath, too deep to detect, too fast to be human-made. Others recall the strange, heavy quiet that would follow, a silence so complete it felt alive, and then there are the wrecks that are found, when they're found at all. No signs of impact, no fire, no crew. Just hulls stripped of data, navigation cores erased, logs missing entire days. Governments dismiss the stories as coincidence, confusion, or cover-ups meant to protect classified technology. But those who've been close know that the military silence hides more than machines. Sometimes it hides encounters no one is willing to explain, signals that don't belong to any known source, shadows moving beneath submarines, lights flickering under impossible depths. What if the truth isn't that the ocean took them, but that something beneath it was already there, and we've been trespassing in someone else's territory all along? There are places in the ocean where light itself gives up, where even the brightest beam fades into nothing, swallowed by pressure and time. Down there, the world isn't black. It's beyond color, beyond comprehension. No shimmer, no horizon, only the soft sound of water shifting against water and the endless, invisible space that waits for anything that dares to fall. Scientists call these regions aphotic zones, but the name feels too gentle. Because nothing truly lives here, not in the way we understand life. Creatures glow not to be seen, but to know they exist. Their faint blue pulses drift like lonely thoughts through an infinite midnight. Every movement feels ancient, every sound, borrowed from a forgotten time before the sun found its voice. When explorers lower cameras into these depths, the feed often cuts to static, as if the darkness itself refuses to be filmed. There are no landmarks, no walls, no floor that the eye can rest on, only the illusion of falling forever, a place where direction has no meaning and silence becomes so vast it feels like a presence. Some say this is where lost things go to rest. Ships, voices, even light itself. And maybe that's why nothing ever comes back the same, because in the places without light, memory unravels, sound bends, metal forgets its shape. Even time moves differently, flowing slower, thicker, like it too is afraid to disturb the dark. And if the ocean truly remembers everything, perhaps it hides its deepest memories here, buried beneath miles of unbroken black, where the only truth left is that not everything lost wishes to be found. Sound travels faster through water than air, yet in the deepest reaches of the sea, there are echoes that never return. Scientists send out sonar pings expecting the crisp bounce of data, but sometimes the signal simply vanishes. No reflection, no distortion, just an absence so perfect it feels deliberate, as if something vast and listening beneath the surface has chosen silence instead of reply. The ocean was once mapped by these sounds, a pulse sent outward, a heartbeat returning. But in some places, the waves don't come back. Instruments record strange fluctuations as though the sea is bending sound, folding it through layers of shifting temperature and density that confuse even the most advanced sensors. Sometimes the signal reappears hours later, warped beyond recognition, carrying whispers like distant voices trapped in static. Divers describe hearing low hums that don't belong to their equipment, rhythmic, almost sentient, moving around them rather than echoing back. Submarines report acoustic shadows, phantom blips that seem to mimic their own sonar, as though the deep were talking back in disguise. For decades, naval operators have documented these anomalies, entire regions where sonar behaves like memory, fragmented, unreliable, emotional, Scientists explain it as complex thermoclines and pressure gradients, yet even they admit that some readings defy all physics, because down there, in the blue-black corridors of the deep, sound behaves less like science and more like instinct. It drifts, hides, repeats. Sometimes it lingers for days before dissolving into nothing. And in that nothingness lies the most haunting truth of all, that the ocean, vast and ancient, may not be empty at all. It may simply choose not to answer. In the silent miles beneath the surface, machines built for certainty often stumble into myth. Submarines glide through blackness, guided by instruments and logic, yet their crews tell stories that sound nothing like science. Metal footsteps echoing along the hull, rhythmic and deliberate, as if something walks where nothing should. Engineers blame pressure shifts, sonar reflections, even the vessel's own bones creaking. But those who've heard it say it sounds aware. Hydrophones stationed across the Pacific once caught a strange metallic resonance, not mechanical, not geological. The sound repeated every few minutes for weeks, steady and purposeful, then vanished without trace. Its pattern matched no known marine life, no vessel, no quake. The data remains archived under cold technical labels, but among those who analyze it, whispers still pass. It sounded like construction. Other recordings tell of deep pulses that rise like voices. Some claim they resemble engines from ships long gone, vessels recorded decades ago, still echoing faintly beneath newer waves. Scientists argue it's acoustic mirage, a bending of sound through heat and pressure. But every so often a transmission appears that carries rhythm, pacing, even tone, almost speech. Technology built to reveal truth often ends up awakening wonder. The deeper we listen, the more myth slips through the circuits. For every answer found, 10 new questions ripple outward, dissolving in the dark. It's as though the ocean itself enjoys watching us guess, allowing just enough evidence to feed belief, never enough to prove it wrong. And so, beneath the hum of instruments, every ping and whisper becomes part of a legend, one that lives, not in old tales or sailors' fear, but inside the algorithms of machines still trying to understand what's calling from below. Late at night, when radio static fills the cabins of distant research ships, there are moments when a voice breaks through, fragile, trembling, and impossibly old. It's not uncommon for operators to catch fragments of old frequencies bouncing off the ionosphere, but some of these signals don't belong anywhere on record. They carry ship names long erased from registries, distress calls spoken in codes abandoned generations ago. Sometimes coordinates are given, places that no longer exist on modern maps. In 1989, a weather vessel off the Azores intercepted a faint SOS repeating endlessly, "Engine failure, taking water, coordinates," before it cut to static. The call matched a ship lost in 1923. When experts replayed the recording, the signal strength and modulation were far too clean to be a replayed broadcast. No trace of interference, no sign of trickery. Just a human voice traveling through time. There are tales from deep-sea relay stations, too, operators who swear they've heard voices calling their names, followed by silence. Each time, instruments show nothing transmitted, nothing received. The static itself seems to hum with memory, carrying tones that trigger emotion before logic. Some believe these are reflections from long-dead transmissions, caught and refracted through magnetic storms and layers of water vapor. Others whisper that the ocean itself records what it hears, replaying lost moments when the night is quiet enough. And perhaps that's the truest explanation of all, that beneath the waves, time doesn't move forward or back. It drifts, it lingers. Somewhere in that endless hum, the sea keeps speaking for those who never returned, their voices woven into the static, waiting for someone someday to listen again. Beneath the calmest waters lies a force that feels alive, patient, deliberate, and unseen. To the eye, the ocean's surface may seem perfectly still, but below it, there are rivers of water moving with the weight of mountains. These are not storms or tempests, but gravitational slips, deep undercurrents that bend reality itself. When a ship passes over the wrong point, it isn't struck or shattered. It's taken, quietly, cleanly, as if a hand reached up from below and pulled it into silence. In places like the Mariana Trench or the Kermadec Ridge, gravity is distorted by shifting tectonic plates where water cascades downward with unimaginable pressure. Entire pockets of ocean sink like inverted waterfalls, pulling anything nearby into darkness without a sound. The wrecks that reach these depths aren't crushed instantly. They drift for a while, weightless, before being folded into layers of silt and pressure. Instruments stop working, voices fade, and radar shows nothing but a flicker before blankness. For centuries, sailors spoke of black mouths in the sea, regions that swallowed sound, light, and memory. Modern science calls them subduction zones, but even now their precision cannot explain the consistency of loss. Ships traveling through them vanish, as if slipping through invisible cracks in gravity's design. The ocean doesn't roar when it claims them, it exhales, a slow, endless sigh as another vessel joins its quiet descent. And as we stare into those unmarked points on the map, we realize something unsettling, that beneath the world we know there exists another, governed by silence and gravity, where everything we lose continues to fall forever. The deeper you go, the more the world begins to close in. Pressure builds like an invisible fist, crushing everything that dares to descend. At a few hundred meters, glass begins to crack. At 1,000, steel starts to groan like something alive. Beyond that, even the strongest hulls tremble, bending inward, creaking under the unbearable weight of water. Down here, there is no light, no sound, no direction, only the slow, relentless squeeze of a world that refuses to let you exist. Imagine standing on the deck of a vessel as it descends into the dark. Every meter feels heavier. The gauges strain, the metal hums. The air grows thick, not with fear but with pressure itself. It isn't a force you can fight. It's a law, absolute and unyielding. When the hull finally gives, it doesn't explode. It implodes. In less than a second, everything collapses inward, folding like paper, vanishing into silence. Scientists describe it in numbers, tons per square inch, depths measured in meters. But numbers cannot convey what it feels like to be beneath a crushing ocean, surrounded by darkness that presses on your bones. There's no time to scream, no sound to carry it, only a sudden, eternal quiet. This is where human invention meets its limit. Submarines, drones, sensors, all can explore, but only to a point. Beyond that point lies a kingdom of pressure, untouched and untouchable. The ocean doesn't rage here. It simply exists in its truest form, vast, cold, and patient. A reminder that no matter how advanced we become, there are still depths meant only for silence, where even steel forgets its strength and the sea reclaims what dares to enter. When the crushing ends, there is no echo, no debris floating upward, no trail of oil or splintered wood, only stillness, a silence so complete it feels sacred. The ocean absorbs everything, folding what once was into its endless blue grave. A ship that stood proud on the surface becomes nothing more than a fine mist of particles, scattered and weightless. In minutes, it's as if it never existed at all. Down in the abyss, the wreck doesn't rot or decay in the way we know. There's no air to corrode, no light to feed life. Instead, the remains dissolve, slowly, patiently, until the sea wears them down into memory. Even the black boxes, built to endure anything, are sometimes swallowed whole, buried under shifting sands and whispering currents. The ocean cleans its wounds without leaving scars. It's strange how disappearance here feels almost merciful. No violence, no wreckage to mourn over, just a quiet undoing. Nature's way of restoring its symmetry. To those above, the ship is missing. To the ocean, it has returned. In the aftermath, sonar waves travel through empty water, seeking answers that no longer exist. Nothing bounces back, only silence, vast, eternal, and indifferent. And in that silence, there's a lesson carved deeper than any trench, that not all endings are meant to be found. Some dissolve into beauty, into peace, into a truth too deep for sound to carry. When the last ripple fades and the sea lies calm again, it feels as though nothing ever happened. But somewhere far below, where pressure reigns and light is only a memory, the ocean keeps its secret, perfectly, permanently. It began as a faint signal, a trembling SOS caught between frequencies, drifting through static like a ghost calling from nowhere. The operator who first heard it thought it was interference, a trick of the weather, until he decoded the coordinates. They matched a ship that had vanished 30 years earlier. The voice was cracked, thin, and human, repeating the same words, "Mayday," engines failing. "We can't see land." And then silence. Hi guys, tonight we drift again into the strange corridors of time, where voices don't just echo, they linger. In this video, we'll follow the forgotten transmissions that the ocean refuses to erase and the impossible truth behind them. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Deep Blue Secrets, like this video, and tell us from which place and at what time you're watching tonight. Then, turn off the lights, let the soft hum of the background settle in, and listen as the past calls through the sea. Across decades, strange signals have appeared, messages looping endlessly across open water. Sometimes they're old Morse patterns. Other times, garbled human speech warped by salt and time. Scientists say it's possible. Sound can bounce between thermal layers, trapped in a circular current, resurfacing years later. But some of these voices belong to ships that were never found. Their last coordinates now swallowed by depth. Imagine the ocean as a great recorder, its vastness holding on to every cry, every ping, every fading transmission. When the right pressure, current, and temperature align, it lets one slip free. A memory reborn in sound. No one knows why or how, but for a moment, a voice from another century pierces the modern static. The sea doesn't forget. It waits, and sometimes it speaks. It's a quiet kind of miracle, a message sealed in glass, drifting through tides that never sleep. Somewhere, long ago, a hand wrote words meant for no one in particular, a confession, a farewell, a wish. The bottle was cast into the sea, its sender trusting the waves to decide its fate. Decades later, it arrives. On a distant shore, in a stranger's hands, the ink still alive beneath yellowed paper. Each one tells a story of hope that refused to sink. Some were sent by sailors trapped in storms, others by lovers separated by war, or wanderers who simply wanted to be remembered. When the cork finally loosens and light touches the letter again, it feels like the ocean returning, a heartbeat long thought lost. There's a gentle sadness in the thought that the sea carried these words farther than their authors ever traveled. Through cold nights, through storms, through silence, each wave kept the secret safe, like the ocean itself understood the fragility of human hope. Scientists often marvel at how glass can survive for so long, resisting decay. But the real miracle isn't the bottle. It's the persistence of emotion sealed within it. When someone on a lonely beach uncovers one of these bottles, the moment feels unreal, as if the past had chosen that person alone to remember. The handwriting, the folds, the scent of salt all speak of a time when connection meant surrendering control to the unknown. Every message that survives the sea carries proof that even in an endless world, a single human voice can drift through eternity and still find its way home. They're built to be unbreakable, the small orange beacons meant to call for help when everything else fails. When a ship goes down, they float, transmit, and lead rescuers to the exact spot. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they stay silent. Other times they scream from nowhere at all. Coordinates that exist only on water, signals that vanish when approached. In control rooms across the world, these phantom alerts appear suddenly. A pulse, a cry for help, then static. Search teams rush to the site expecting wreckage, debris, or drifting survivors. But the sea is flat, calm, and empty, as if the ocean itself had forged the signal just to mock our faith in precision. These are the untraceable beacons, the digital ghosts of the deep. Technicians explain it away with science. Reflections from satellites, interference from solar storms, even old devices reactivated by pressure. Yet none of these answers fit perfectly. The transmissions often match registered IDs of vessels long declared lost, their serial numbers buried in archives. When checked, their beacons were never recovered. It's in these moments, when technology meets something vast and uncooperative, that fear creeps in. We built machines to conquer distance, to tame chaos, to make the unknown measurable. But at sea, precision becomes illusion. The deeper you look, the less certain you become. Some rescuers say they still hear faint beeps, rhythmic and persistent, long after the mission's end. They come from nowhere and fade the moment you move closer, like whispers moving through fog. Maybe the ocean is reminding us, in its realm, even certainty is temporary. The beacons flash, fade, and fall silent again, as if they were never meant to guide us home. Every voyage begins with certainty, a captain's steady hand, the quiet rhythm of trust between crew and sea. But sometimes it's not the storm or the machinery that ends a journey. It's a choice, a moment too confident or too slow, a decision made under the hum of calm skies that shifts the line between life and loss. On the bridge, instruments blink softly. The radar is clear. The horizon looks kind. Perhaps it's just a shortcut taken through familiar waters, a calculation overlooked, or an order delayed by seconds. Experience is both shield and blindfold, the weight of countless safe passages whispering, "This one will be no different." But the ocean listens differently. When ships vanish without a trace, investigators search for mechanical fault, for bad weather, for sabotage. Yet so often it comes back to human hands, hands that meant no harm, hands that trusted too much. The tragedy is quiet. A turn too wide, a warning too late, a light ignored because it flickered too often before. There's no villain here, only the soft cruelty of being human. We build steel giants, chart invisible paths, and believe our knowledge is enough. But faith in familiarity can drown as easily as fear. The ocean doesn't punish, it simply waits for mistakes to meet its patience. When the captain's last decision echoes through the black box recordings, a calm voice, a routine command, it's not arrogance you hear. It's hope. Hope that the sea will forgive one more error, one more moment of being beautifully, tragically human. In the end, experience becomes memory, memory becomes myth. And another ship joins the silence, claimed not by rage or storm, but by the gentle weight of trust misplaced. There is something ancient in the way we face the horizon, a pull that has outlived fear, logic, and history. Even as the sea swallows our greatest ships and humbles our finest minds, we keep returning. Every lost vessel becomes a question, and every question becomes a compass. It's not greed alone or pride that drives us, but something deeper, a devotion to understanding what we're not meant to. From the first wooden rafts to the silent submarines gliding miles beneath, humanity has treated the ocean not as an enemy, but as a mirror. Each voyage reflects our longing to reach beyond the known, to chase the shimmer at the edge of perception. We tell ourselves it's for science, for discovery, for maps and data, but it's also for meaning. The sea holds the silence we crave, and the answers we can never quite hear. Those who venture out know the risks. They've read the stories, seen the names carved in memorials, heard the last transmissions fade into static, and yet they go. Because to stop exploring would mean to stop believing that the unknown can still offer something beautiful. There's a melancholy in this defiance, the quiet courage of sailors, scientists, and dreamers who accept that the price of discovery might be disappearance. Each expedition is a prayer whispered into wind and salt, trusting the ocean to listen gently. Perhaps that's what keeps humanity afloat. Not certainty, but faith that even if the sea takes us, it also remembers us. In its endless motion we find our reflection, fragile, curious, and eternal. In every port town, there are windows that face the sea, windows that never close, curtains that never move. Behind them someone waits, a wife, a mother, a son, eyes fixed on a horizon that never answers back. The ocean becomes part of their daily life, not as scenery, but as presence. They talk to it, curse it, pray to it. Some leave lamps burning through the night, a silent signal for the one who never returned. The waiting takes shape in rituals, a cup of tea left untouched until dawn, a chair that no one sits on anymore, names whispered into the wind as if sound could carry across waves. In these coastal homes, time doesn't pass, it folds. Every sound from the harbor could be hymn. Every gull cry could be a message. And so they keep listening. Children grow up hearing stories of ships swallowed whole, of men who walked into the mist and became myths. The sea teaches them patience, and the ache of half-belief that maybe, just maybe, someone lost could still be found. Hope becomes both comfort and torment, a tide that rises and falls with each day's end. Some nights, when the air is still and the moon glows over the water, those who wait say they can hear faint knocks on the hulls of docked boats, as if ghosts are coming home. They smile through tears, whispering the same words every generation learns to say. The sea takes, but it also remembers, and so they wait, not because they expect, but because love itself is a kind of lighthouse, burning quietly against the dark. Some stretches of ocean are marked not on maps but in whispers. Sailors call them the cursed routes, lanes where compasses spin, engines fail, and ships vanish in calm weather. These are the arteries of the sea that seem to pulse with memory, swallowing travelers who dare cross them. The Devil's Sea near Japan, the Sargasso of the Atlantic, and quiet corners of the Pacific. Each has its legends, its records of disappearance too similar to dismiss. The stories begin alike. A ship sets sail under clear skies, reports normal conditions, and then silence. No wreckage, no distress call, just absence. Months later, another vessel follows the same path and meets the same end. Over centuries, the repetition grows impossible to ignore. Scientists map magnetic anomalies and shifting currents, but the pattern feels older, almost deliberate. Ancient mariners drew warning circles on their charts, marking forbidden waters. Modern radar operators laugh until their screens flicker and a blip vanishes mid-scan. Pilots crossing certain coordinates report seeing the sea fold inward, as if space itself turns soft. The myths feed on this rhythm, disappearance upon disappearance. Each loss becomes a verse in an endless ballad, proof that the sea keeps its own kind of record. Some say these routes are scars, tears in the ocean's skin where time leaks through. Others believe they are traps, echoes of ancient catastrophes replaying themselves. And yet, the routes remain open. Cargo ships, fishing boats, and submarines still cut through them every day, daring the same odds. Because no matter how many stories warn them, the ocean remains the world's only highway, and humanity keeps driving through the curse, hoping the next voyage will be the one that makes it out. There are nights when the sea glows, not from moonlight, but from something stranger. Sailors call them phantom lights, soft pulses shimmering across the horizon like distant lanterns. They drift, flicker, and vanish when approached, leaving nothing but black water and the uneasy realization that the ship has strayed off course. From ancient voyages to modern freighters, these glowing veils have been recorded for centuries. Some describe misty blue fogs that rise suddenly, surrounding ships in an otherworldly haze. Others report lights that mimic beacons, drawing vessels toward reefs or uncharted shoals. Navigation instruments twist uselessly, compasses hesitate, and radar returns only static, as if the sea itself projects illusions to confuse those who trust their eyes. Bioluminescent plankton can explain some of it, scientists say. The rest, the distant flares that move with intelligence, the hovering spheres that vanish when hailed, remain beyond understanding. In logbooks, officers write of false horizons that bend the sky, of waves reflecting light that isn't there, One tale tells of a cargo ship in the Indian Ocean whose crew followed a faint green glow, believing it to be another vessel. When the light extinguished, they found themselves miles off their plotted route, surrounded by dead calm and deep silence. The engines stalled, and when rescue arrived days later, the ship drifted empty. To the rational mind, the ocean plays tricks: refraction, mist, magnetic storms. But to the sailor who's seen a phantom light hovering above the waves, it feels personal, a lure cast by the deep, promising direction while hiding the edge of the world. Long before satellites mapped the seabed, old mariners spoke of places where the waters seemed to breathe, where compasses spun and whispers rose from below. Their stories were dismissed as superstition, yet centuries later, sonar scans revealed those very coordinates: trenches, vents, and shifting magnetic fields exactly where myths had placed them. Legends from Polynesia told of Timoana Huna, the sea that hides, a vast hollow beneath the surface. When modern submersibles explored that region, they found a massive undersea cavern system, one that distorts sonar like an echo chamber. Ancient Greek sailors warned of the still sea, a place that swallowed oars' sound. Today we know of deep thermoclines that absorb vibration completely, creating pockets of unnatural silence. In Arctic folklore, Inuit hunters spoke of glowing waters that pulled at their sleds, later understood as the aurora's reflection over magnetic anomalies near the poles. The myth was not false, merely poetic. Even the famous Bermuda Triangle, for all its sensationalism, matches old islander warnings about the sea that eats iron. Modern research confirms the seafloor there is rich in magnetic minerals, capable of distorting navigation instruments. It's as if ancient sailors, without technology, sensed truths we now confirm through machines. Their myths were not ignorance. They were observation wrapped in reverence. The ocean spoke to them in a language of symbols, and they listened. When myth and record agree, the boundary between legend and reality dissolves. What was once a story becomes a map, and what we dismiss as folklore may still hold the coordinates of tomorrow's discovery. ChatGPT said, "The sea may look like a single flowing body, but beneath its surface lies a labyrinth of shifting rivers, spinning gyres, and hidden vortices. Every wave, every current is part of a delicate chaos, an invisible system that constantly rewrites its own rules. When a ship vanishes, it doesn't simply sink. It's taken apart by motion itself. Oceanographers describe how micro-eddies, swirling pockets no larger than a city block, can scatter debris across hundreds of miles. A floating plank, a lifeboat, or even an oil slick can vanish into the current's patchwork, carried into silence by the sea's intricate choreography. Wreckage doesn't disappear because it's gone. It disappears because it's everywhere. Even the largest ocean currents, like the Gulf Stream or the Kuroshio, shift and fragment without warning. A single change in temperature or wind can redirect tons of floating debris overnight. For search teams, it means that coordinates become meaningless within hours. Yesterday's certainty turns into today's confusion. Scientists once believed that by mapping currents, they could predict the ocean's behavior. But the more precise their instruments became, the more randomness they found. The ocean's flow isn't linear. It's a living, breathing equation that hides its solutions. Perhaps that's why the sea still humbles even the most advanced explorers. It operates by patterns too vast for human intuition, yet too fluid for human logic. Ships vanish not only into depth, but into the mathematics of motion, where chaos masquerades as order, and the ocean keeps its secrets by never standing still. Time in the ocean doesn't move forward. It sinks. Saltwater erases slowly, patiently, like a sculptor smoothing the face of memory. What once gleamed with human effort, steel, brass, lettering carved with pride, begins to fade. Rust blooms like underwater ivy, covering every trace of who built, who sailed, who vanished. In the beginning, the wreck still remembers itself. A captain's chair, a compass pointing nowhere, a mug rolling in the quiet tide, these things whisper of purpose. But as months pass, currents carry away the delicate edges of identity. A nameplate becomes unreadable. Paint becomes coral. Every story becomes sediment. Divers describe the feeling of touching history softened by time, how even a simple bolt, once sharp, now feels like bone worn smooth. The sea does not destroy, it forgets. It doesn't rage against creation, it waits until creation forgets what it was. Over decades, the ocean reduces even metal to language, not in words, but in texture and form. A wreck becomes reef, its silence repurposed into new life. Fish move through broken windows once meant for men. Time doesn't end here, it transforms, quietly, endlessly. Maybe that's the ocean's final act of mercy. To take what once screamed of loss and let it rest, unrecognizable but eternal. In its patience, the sea doesn't erase to punish, it erases to heal. What the world calls disappearance, the ocean calls peace. For all our satellites, sensors, and sonar maps, the ocean remains a vast, unmapped shadow. We have charted the surface of Mars in finer detail than the world beneath our own waves. Every sonar ping that touches the deep returns like an echo from another universe. Partial, hesitant, incomplete, the ocean hides not only distance, but depth itself. Light fades within meters, and even sound, our most faithful explorer, bends and twists until truth is distorted. Machines descend, cameras record, but what they capture is never the whole, only fragments suspended in blackness. Scientists once believed that with enough data, the mysteries would dissolve. Yet each discovery expands the borders of the unknown. Under the ocean's skin lie canyons deeper than Everest is tall, plains so vast they could cradle continents, and life forms that rewrite our understanding of existence. Still, every map we make ends in the same unfinished line. Beyond here, uncertainty. Technology illuminates, but only where the ocean allows it. There are places where sonar signals vanish, swallowed by thermal layers, regions where magnetic fields warp instruments into silence. It's not that we haven't looked, it's that we cannot see, and maybe that is the point. The sea reminds us that knowledge has edges, and beyond them lies wonder. In its silence, it humbles every attempt to master it, every human belief in certainty. For all our brilliance, we are still children tracing outlines in the sand, while the true map, the one that breathes beneath us, remains hidden, vast, and beautifully unfinished. They are the ones who never stopped listening, the deep-sea hunters, whose lives became bound to the ghosts of ships that once crossed the world. Some are scientists, some divers, some just dreamers who could never accept the word lost. Their tools are sonar scans and submersibles. Their prayers are the long, patient hours spent waiting for a shadow to appear on the screen. They know the ocean like a language spoken in silence. To most, the sea is a surface, glittering, endless, unknowable. But to them, it is layered with memory. Each current, each fragment of steel, half buried in silt, tells a story they are determined to finish. Years pass. Storms erase clues. Technology changes. Yet they return again and again, guided not only by data but by faith, a quiet conviction that the missing still want to be found. Some call it obsession. But to the hunters, it feels like devotion. They are drawn not by glory but by the ache of incompletion, the need to close a story that never received its ending. When a sonar image finally reveals the faint outline of a hull, resting untouched for decades, there is no celebration, only stillness. A soft, almost sacred silence, because finding the lost does not end the mystery. It honors it. Each discovery is a conversation across time, a whisper between those who vanished and those who refuse to stop searching. And as long as the sea continues to keep its secrets, there will always be someone listening, somewhere, waiting for the ocean to whisper back. There are times when the sea gives nothing back, no wreckage, no signal, not even a whisper of metal beneath the waves. Weeks stretch into months, and the searchers find only the rhythm of the tides and the hum of their own thoughts. Yet somewhere within that silence, meaning begins to take shape. For them, the search was never only about finding ships or answers. It became something else, a quiet dialogue with the ocean itself. To search is to listen, to hope, to stand before vastness and still dare to reach into it. Each failed expedition feels like a confession that not all mysteries exist to be solved, and not every journey must end in discovery. They return to shore empty-handed, yet somehow fuller, their faces weathered by salt, their eyes softened by understanding. They have touched something invisible, something larger than loss. The ocean's refusal is not cruelty. It is a reminder. Some things are meant to remain unseen so that wonder itself can survive, and in that realization lies peace. To search the sea and find nothing is still to have witnessed its truth, that the unknown does not exist to frustrate us, but to complete us. Each unanswered question, each blank coordinate, becomes part of who they are. They did not find what they sought, but they found why they seek, and in that, perhaps, they finally found everything that mattered. Sometimes, after decades of silence, the ocean answers, not with clarity, but with fragments. A rusted ship's bell lifted from the sand, still faintly etched with a name. A single boot worn smooth by years of drifting. A waterlogged camera, its film miraculously intact, showing faces that time forgot. These are the ocean's replies, quiet, incomplete, but deeply human. Each object carries a story, compressed into silence. The bell once rang across calm decks at dawn. The boot once stood steady on a floor that no longer exists. The camera once captured laughter before the horizon swallowed it whole. What returns to the surface is never just metal or leather or glass. It's proof that someone was here, that the sea did not erase them completely. Divers handle these things as if they're sacred. In the glow of their lamps, the deep seems to breathe around them, watching. For every relic that rises, 1,000 more rest unseen, their stories folded into the current. Yet even a single recovered piece feels like a whisper from the abyss. The ocean's reluctant admission that memory still survives beneath its endless motion. When the bell tolls again, faintly under the light of a new morning, it doesn't mourn, it answers. The sea does not forget. It only waits until the right hands are ready to listen. The surface of the ocean is a lie told beautifully. It ripples with sunlight, sighs with wind, and moves as if nothing beneath it has ever known pain. Ships pass, gulls cry, the horizon glimmers, and all the while countless stories sleep just below, unseen and unspoken. The sea wears its calm like a mask, hiding the weight of what it has taken. Somewhere beneath that mirror of blue lies steel folded into the sand, names erased from ledgers, voices that once filled cabins with laughter. Yet above the waves roll on, perfect and indifferent. It is this contrast that humbles those who look too long, how the same water that cradles life also keeps the dead in quiet company. The world forgets. Ports rebuild, maps change, and families age beyond their grief. But the ocean remembers with every tide. Its calm is not peace, but patience, a silence thick with memory. When light touches the surface at dusk, it glows like glass above a graveyard, fragile and eternal, and so from a distance, all seems well. The sea remains serene, soft, almost forgiving. Yet to those who truly listen, there's a rhythm beneath the calm, a slow pulse, deep and enduring, reminding us that serenity often hides sorrow, and that beauty, like the ocean, is rarely innocent. ChatGPT said, "Beneath the calm blue veil, the ocean is never still." The missing ships do not rest. They move with the slow breathing of the abyss. Currents drag their bones inch by inch across the sand, turning steel into sediment, decks into drifting plains. The ocean does not bury, it reshapes. Every lost vessel becomes a heartbeat in the planet's living pulse. Down there, where light has never lived, wrecks whisper against one another, hull to hull, ghost to ghost. They tilt, crumble, and merge with coral, becoming reefs of forgotten time. Fish sleep in the captain's cabin, crabs crawl through silent corridors, and anemones bloom where engines once roared. Life reclaims the lost, turning tragedy into quiet renewal. But nothing stays still. The ocean floor shifts like a slow tide of stone, swallowing what it once revealed. A ship found today might vanish again by tomorrow, drawn deeper into the earth's hidden rhythm. To the ocean, memory is motion. The past keeps moving even when no one is left to see it. Above it all, the waves remain gentle, unaware of the cathedrals of ruin drifting below. Yet somewhere in that endless darkness, the truth beneath still moves, a vast, silent choreography of loss and rebirth, where the forgotten are never truly gone. In the end, the ocean teaches that disappearance is not an ending. It is a change of form. Nothing beneath its surface is ever truly lost. It simply becomes something else. A ship turns to coral, a name to current, a voice to echo. The sea transforms all it takes, weaving fragments of the past into the fabric of what still lives. Perhaps that is its greatest secret, the balance between keeping and giving back. The ocean reminds us that to vanish is to return in another way, to drift, dissolve, and rejoin the quiet cycle that began long before memory itself. Disappearance, in its deepest sense, is continuity, a surrender that leads to transformation. As the tides move and the moon rises, everything once thought gone still participates in this vast rhythm. Even silence carries a resonance, even darkness holds light unseen. The ocean does not erase what it takes. It reimagines it endlessly, patiently, and so those who look upon the waves at dusk might feel a strange peace. Beneath that endless motion lies the oldest lesson on Earth, that existence is not defined by presence, but by persistence. The sea does not mourn what it swallows. It teaches us to see loss not as emptiness, but as evolution, the quiet truth that everything continues somewhere beyond the reach of sight.